Welcome, fans, to the Toe to Toe podcast for Combat Press. I am your host, John Franklin. I am joined by the two men who are the most fit to handle this duty of breaking down UFC 194. Sal DeRose, Vince Carey. They wrote the preview for Combat Press, the Toe to Toe preview. We're going to expand upon that, get into some other stuff. First, let me go to you guys individually. Sal, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. How you feeling? Talk to me about the energy of this week.
I'm actually pretty ecstatic. Besides the fact that it's 9:30 right now, so I'm kind of a little bit tired. You know, kind of a little jittery. You got the Fight Night 80 up coming on right now, so with the main card. So kind of ecstatic about that. 3 days in a row fights, good enough for me.
It's pretty exciting, Vince, right? I mean, we got this huge card, 3 nights of. It's like typically they do this like during a fan expo or something, but we get it, in December.
It's Christmas come early. I'm loving it, man. It's awesome.
All right, so I just want to talk to you guys, and I'll start with Vince. I want to talk about this card just in terms of, it seems like a really huge card. This seems like a really big fight, but yet I hear Dana White telling me all the time, hey, this is the biggest fight in UFC history. He said it again here. Where do you think this fight fits in terms of, I mean, you don't need to list off the biggest fights in history, but I mean, how huge is this card in your eyes?
Biggest in history, probably not, but it's definitely the biggest of the year, I think. With this Aldo McGregor fight, we've been dying for it since, last January, I think, when McGregor jumped out of the cage, or that was last December, so this fight's going to pretty much signify how well this year goes for the UFC, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, we had Ronda lose, so I mean, there's a lot riding on this fight for the UFC. I mean, when Dana White had to do the post-Ronda Rousey press conference, you thought a family member died, and it was just because Rousey lost and all the money that went out the window. Sal, how big do you think this is for the UFC and just for the sport?
I don't think it's UFC 100 levels. When you had GSP on the card, you had Brock Lesnar headlining the card, and all those good fights, but I think, again, for the year, it's a pretty big card. When you all things considered, you have 2 title fights on the card. You got, the biggest rivalry pretty much of the year that's been brewing for like a year, right? A year and a half between McGregor and Aldo, and you have all the back and forth between them. You have Embedded. You see Embedded going on Fox now. I think that pretty much shows you how big of a card this is. That the Embedded series alone is on cable TV, on Fox. It's on slot on Fox. So I think that alone tells you how big this card is, and yeah, I'm actually really excited. It's gonna. I mean, again, it's even outside of the main event. You got Faber, you got Weidman, Rockhold, you got Souza. You got a lot of guys, the heavy hitters that are going to be contending for titles this year, or early next year.
I agree, and the interesting thing for me about all this is that I want to start outside the cage. So we'll start obviously with Aldo McGregor. I want to start with some outside the cage stuff. Chael Sonnen did an interview recently, and I've talked to Chael a couple times. Super bright guy, obviously. Obviously, Conor McGregor is the taking the mantle from Chael as the promoter of fights. He said neither one of these guys want to win, which I thought was interesting. He also said that Aldo's talking about retirement. McGregor's talking about going to 155. So,
right.
Do you see any of that, Vince? Do you see that these guys don't want to win, or do you think Chael's off base?
I hate to be kind of cliche here, but that's kind of Chael being Chael. Chael says things sometimes, I think, that only he really understands. I think, if anything, these guys want to win this fight more than any other one, just because McGregor obviously wants the belt and everything goes with it, but Jose seems really irritated with Conor and pissed off, and I think they both want it more than normal, if anything.
All right, and this is how you know Vince is a pro, because he gives me a perfect segue to my next question for Sal. All the promotion of this has been on Conor's end. So my question is, and that's another thing that Chael said, was that Jose's complaining about the pay, and he's complaining about the, which is kind of ironic. If you're complaining about the pay and you don't help promote the fight, you're a champ. You get points on the back end. So why are you complaining about the pay if you're not helping promote? My question to you, Sal, is Jose playing the right card for promotion, though? Like, doesn't he have to sort of seem like he's above it all?
I mean, Conor it really is carrying his card, but at the same time, I mean, Jose's, he's giving in sometimes, giving him the finger at the press conference, coming out, Conor's giving an interview and he's coming up and, telling him he's talking too much and, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, I think he's right that he doesn't get paid enough, to be honest with you, a guy that's, been dominant for 10 years. And Dana White's calling the best pound-for-pound fighter, which, I mean, honestly doesn't really make much of a difference. Doesn't have really much weight because he says it about every title fight and every big fighter that comes, every big champion that he has is the pound-for-pound king. But, you have this guy and he's making nothing. But at the same time, I don't think he's gonna last much longer. With the whole pay thing in the UFC, if he keeps it up, to be honest.
I agree, and we've seen, the UFC will tolerate you kind of talking behind the scenes until, like, you're John Fitch, that you no longer serve them, and now it's like, all right, enough, take a walk. So, all right, I want to get in the cage now. So let's look at the tail of the tape real quick. So it's obviously Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor. One's the champ, Aldo. One's the interim champ, McGregor. They're both bringing the belts to the cage. So for Aldo, it's 25-1. He hasn't lost in a long time. 18-2 for Conor McGregor. Average fight time I found interesting. Jose's in the cage about 14 minutes. Conor's in there for about 6. Conor's the bigger fighter at 5'9", and Jose's 5'7". 145 obviously for both. Conor has a 4-inch advantage in reach. He's a southpaw, only the second southpaw that Aldo's fought, last one being Kenny Florian. And, they're about 2 years apart in age. So, so my question for you guys, right out the front, what do you think that Conor being a southpaw is an advantage? Thanks.
Yes and no. I do, because it's different, and anytime you can throw anything a little bit different at Aldo, it's going to help. But that lead leg is going to be out. Conor's stance, especially, that lead leg is just going to be sitting there, and with the way Aldo kicks, it kind of scares me a little bit that he's going to be leaving it out there like that.
I agree, and it's been 15 months since we've seen Aldo last. So I think that sometimes we forget how great this kid is, how quick he is, how quick twitch he is. So, and I'll get back to Vince in a second about what he thinks needs to happen in the fight. But I looked at the stats, and we'll put them up here in a second. But, last time when he fought Kenny Florian kind of struck with him a little bit. It was close. So my question to you, Sal, is if a guy like Florian can keep it close, and this is prime Aldo, are we a little bit sleeping on how great Conor is? Are we sort of just putting him in the chael category and saying, okay, he talks a lot, yes, he can fight, but he's nowhere near Jose? And realistically, I mean, this kid's got that left that ends fights.
I mean, again, you mentioned the southpaw. He's got that wide stance too. I mean, so leg kicks are going to be coming all day. I don't think we're sleeping so much on Conor, because I think we're all forgetting here who the betting favorite is right now. When you go look at the betting odds, who's the favorite? It's Conor McGregor. So I think if anything, people are sleeping on Jose Aldo coming into this fight. I mean, people slept on Conor going into the Chad Mendes fight, me included. I didn't think he could beat somebody like Chad Mendes. Notice, I guess things kind of change a little bit, but I don't think people are sleeping on him as much going into this, because he's built so much hype around him that people are believing what he's saying, because every time he said something, he's followed through on it, and followed through on it, to the T, calling out first round knockouts and first round submission stuff like that, So I don't think we're sleeping so much on Conor as we are on Jose.
That's the interesting thing, though. I agree with you in the sense that Conor is the betting favorite, but it seems like everybody's picking Aldo. So it's weird to me that this whole thing, I don't know, because Vegas is funny. Like, sometimes Vegas will put a favorite or an underdog in place just to make money. So it's Vegas is a tricky thing to watch. So my question to you, Vince, is that you said that Conor McGregor needs to make this a brawl. Can he do that?
I think he can if he gets after Aldo early, and I think he's gonna come straight at him, and I think he will. And like I was saying before, I think Aldo's pissed off, and sometimes the fighter's gonna let emotion run a little high. If he does that and he comes out hard, and Aldo decides to swing with McGregor for a minute, I wouldn't be completely shocked if McGregor was right again and this fight was over in the first couple minutes if Aldo comes out and plays his game.
So I'll ask you this real quick, and then we'll get to your pick, and then we'll start to look at the rest of the card. Who do you think a 5-round fight favors between these two?
Oh, definitely Aldo. His cardio is going to be an issue, I think, if McGregor can keep him working. But we've seen Aldo beat really good Uriah Faber and Frankie Edgar and all these guys in 5-round fights that have done 5-round fights. So until I see it from Conor, I have a hard time picking him.
You're right. That's the tricky part. We know that Aldo fades. I mean, that's the scouting report on him. But then again, Conor's never even been that far. So give me your pick. I mean, I think we've kind of already foreshadowed it a little bit. But give me your pick and how you see the fight playing out, Vince.
I'm taking Aldo, and I actually think we might end up seeing that decision that Conor's been so adamant that we weren't going to see. I don't know if he's going to win every round. I think McGregor might be able to come on and take a round or two, but I'd say Aldo wins 3 or 4 rounds and retains pretty cleanly.
All right, sounds good. So I'll spin it over to you, Sal. Same question. I want to know again who you think a 5-round fight favors, and then your pick and why.
Well, it depends on how Aldo comes in after the weight cut. I mean, there's, like I said in the article, there's well-documented evidence that he has, he struggles with weight cuts. So I think, if he comes in with a good weight cut, comes in, nice and clean, I think it favors him. But at the same time, I could see McGregor easily, keeping up and outpacing him, 4th or 5th round.
So are you thinking, and just to kind of put a period on this thing, guys, do you think that this is setting up for a UFC 200 rematch? I mean, the timetable's there. Is that what you think, win or lose? I mean, do you think, let me ask it in a better way. If Jose Aldo wins, will he grant Conor McGregor a rematch, Vince?
If Jose Aldo wins, I think he's going to 155. I think he's done everything he needs to do if he beats McGregor, especially if he beats him I don't want to say easily, but as easily as I think he will. I don't know how much there is for him to do.
And and I'll ask Vince the same question, but that's an interesting point because I've said, and this is a completely separate topic, but I've always said about John Jones is the best way that you could stick it to Daniel Cormier is go up to heavyweight and beat Cain Velasquez and never even say, you know what, dude, I don't want a belt. That belt's dirty. I'm never going to walk to a cage in which you hold a belt that I beat you in a fight against. And I think that Jose has a chance to do that here too. If he goes to 55, he leaves Conor with basically a dirty division and says, go win a belt that you couldn't get from me. And now I'm also going to take 55 away from you. So Sal, do you see that?
That's actually a very, very good look at it, and like a supervillain-esque MMA fighter version of what could possibly happen. I think John Jones could be that supervillain. I mean, he's gone heel before, but I think Jose does go to 155. I don't think it's after this fight per se. I think if Dana White wants him to fight at UFC 200, he's going to fight at UFC 200 against Conor McGregor in a rematch if it's that close. I mean, you're already seeing it with Ronda Rousey that he's making Holly Holm now wait for Ronda Rousey to come back, and that might be a UFC 200 fight. So I think he's going to do the same thing with Jose. If Conor McGregor doesn't win this fight, but it's close, he's going to make that rematch in UFC 200 and say, well, look, guys, Conor McGregor was close. He almost beat Jose, the pound-for-pound best in the world, 10 years undefeated. He deserves a rematch. And, all you're going to see in his eyes is those little dollar signs popping up. So I'm sure he'll make a rematch happen. He's not going to let Jose walk away that easy.
That's true. I mean, as soon as Ronda Rousey lost, I immediately was off for the Holly Holm fight with Miesha Tate. The only reason why is because it makes Miesha relevant in the division again. But I completely understand. The one thing that I've kind of gained in covering some of these fights that I have is you start to look at things from a promoter's perspective. And it's there's just, you're right, it's too much money to be made for him not to incentivize Jose Aldo to fight Conor again. Even if it's not, I mean, how close was really the Ronda fight with Miesha? I mean, there's money to be made, so it'll be made.
Right.
All right, let's move on to the co-main event. It's Chris Weidman, the 185-pound champion, taking on Luke Rockhold, former Strikeforce 185-pound champion. This has been a much-anticipated fight. They have a couple of common opponents. So I want to talk again with this fight. We'll start outside the cage. So for me, what I think is interesting about this is that we'll start first with Luke Rockhold, and I want to ask this question in 2 parts, Sal. The first part is Luke Rockhold has said that Chris Weidman is a flavorless champion, and so my addendum to that, or what I'm going to add to that, is that Chris Weidman basically is a modern-day Randy Couture, and I don't understand why we don't embrace him in the same way that we embrace Randy Couture. So my two questions to you are, one, do you think Chris Weidman is a flavorless champion? And why don't we embrace him? Why does he have to go on this join the team campaign?
The big reason why is Anderson Silva. You know, he beat the guy that was pound for pound the best in the world for so long, that so many people love to watch, that so many people love to hate, and he beat him, and he beat him convincingly, not just once, he beat him twice. And I'm a big Anderson Silva supporter. You know, he's been like my favorite fighter this entire time, you know, my entire time watching him. Anderson Silva's been my favorite. So I can understand, you know, not liking the guy that beat him, but at the same time, you have to embrace it. I mean, he beat the guy, and to be the best, you have to beat the best, correct? So would it be beating Anderson Silva make you that, like, super champion? And it really hasn't yet. I don't understand why people still pick against him. I think this fight's very close between the two. I think it's razor thin. I think it's probably the closest fight you could probably make in any division. But at the same time, I think Weidman takes it, and I don't understand why people will continuously bet against the guy when they've seen him destroy Anderson Silva on 2 occasions. You know, beat Vitor Belfort, beat Lyoto Machida. You know, he's beaten the best of the best, and people still can't embrace him. So I don't know if maybe it's psychologically people still aren't over the whole Anderson Silva being dethroned thing and everything like that, but I don't know. Can't really answer that.
I don't really disagree with you, and I think that sometimes things happen and you don't realize when they happen. I told people a while ago, so when Bruno Mars, and this is a out of left field analogy, so try and stick with me. So Bruno Mars, he does the halftime show at Super Bowl, and the next thing you know, Bruno Mars is this worldwide star, and your grandma knows who he is, and no one remembers why, and then it's because he did the halftime show and everybody watched it, and we sort of forget it. I think a little bit Chris Weidman robbed us of Anderson Silva GSP, which we may not have gotten anyway. You know, who's to say that that fight would ever happen? But Chris Weidman in the pre-fight was saying, you know, I'm going to wreck all these plans and this, that, and the other, and that's fine. And like I said, I don't know that we were going to get that fight, but I think, like you said, here was Anderson Silva was our guy that had he retired undefeated, we could always say that we had one of the greatest fighters ever in our generation. And Chris Weidman took that from us. And I don't know if that's kind of why people look at him that way, or maybe, but maybe it was Randy Couture's age. I'm with you. I think that he's a great fighter, super good dude, everything that you would want in a promotable guy. But sometimes, you know, they want people a little more brash. I'll flip it around and talk about Luke Rockhold with you, Vince. Weidman said Luke Rockhold's ego is going to be his downfall. What do you make of that statement, and do you agree with it?
I don't really agree with. I think Rockhold's really confident. There's the cocky confidence thing, and he falls more along the confident side for me. He's very, very. I keep saying confident. But he's very confident that he's going to shut down Weidman's wrestling game, and he's trained with the guys to kind of do that. And I think Weidman's almost taking offense to that someone thinks they can shut him down in that way, and that's why he feels that way about Rockhold. But I don't think there's his ego or his cockiness is going to affect his performance at all.
All right, so let's get to the cage, and we'll look at the tape real quick on these two guys. So Weidman is 13-0, Rockhold's 14-2. The average fight time for both. Weidman's in the cage about 9 minutes. It's 6:29 for Rockhold, 6'2" for Weidman, 6'3" for Rockhold. Obviously, they're both 185 pounds. Weidman has a 1-inch reach advantage. Luke Rockhold's a southpaw, while Chris Weidman's an orthodox fighter, and they're about a couple of months apart in age. So the question I have, and we'll go back to Vince for this, with Chris Weidman is, he really, I don't want to say he's an inexperienced fighter, because he's had 13 fights, and Rockhold's had 16. But the interesting thing about it, so if you look at their most recent fights, their last 5, one of his last 5 fights was Mark Munoz. And so then it was Munoz, then he fought Silva twice, and then Machida and Belfort. So we could be dealing with a guy who's still developing. I mean, he could really be coming into his own still. He might. I mean, I think no one really expected him to beat Anderson Silva. It was like, let's feed him to the lion and see what happens. Then he wins. Now he's the champ. He could still be developing. Am I right, Vince?
Yeah, and I think he is. He's still relatively young, and you see him getting better. His striking actually looked pretty dang good against Vitor Belfort and then he just walked through him, and that's one of the guys that should have been scariest for him, one of the guys that should have been able to make him be worried about the knockout, and Weidman didn't seem really all that concerned about that at all. And he's kind of been like that for every portion of this game. Every fight, he does seem to get better and better, and that's what I think is so good about this, is Rockhold is maybe the one guy in the division that might be well-rounded enough to hang with Weidman tick or tack.
I agree, and so we'll talk about Luke Rockhold, Sal. What I find interesting about Luke Rockhold is people seem to think that Luke Rockhold is bringing something to the table that Chris Weidman's never seen. He's versatile. He's got, just choked out Lyoto Machida. Here's the interesting thing that I find about this fight. Everybody is talking about how much better Luke Rockhold looked against Machida than Weidman did, but yet no one's talking about how much better Weidman looked against Belfort because Luke Rockhold lost to him. Now, there is the issue of what was in Vitor Belfort's system when that fight took place, but for me it's like saying, okay, yeah, he was hopped up on something, but you still got hit with a head kick that you would have got hit with, maybe if he was on something, maybe if he wasn't, who knows. So my point is that that's kind of been forgotten, and most of it's because Luke Rockhold is the one that's sort of putting this out there. So my question to you is, other than focus for the fight, what does Luke Rockhold bring to the table that Anderson Silva did not?
I mean, he's going to be. I mean, again, I think the focus is the really only big thing, because with Anderson Silva, he's goofing around in the ring. He's going to try, psych you out. And, Rockhold's not going to do that. Rockhold's going to stand there. He's going to be poised. He trains with the best of the best. Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier. So I think that's another thing that he probably brings to the table is that training camp behind him. When you train with one champion, another former champion, I think you're getting a lot of experience out of that. You're fighting guys that are bigger than you, so you're getting used to it and you get acclimated in that. And I think that's probably the other big difference maker, for Rockhold would be. But again, I mean, if you're going to come here and look at it with MMA math, he lost the TRT tour, and I don't buy that stuff. I mean, if you want to make it, you probably can make Jason Mayhem Miller look like he beat Fedor Emelianenko if you want to connect him in MMA math. You probably could do it. It'd take a while, but you just can't do it.
It's funny. I actually love and hate MMA math. Here's why I love it. Because if you look hard enough on the internet, you can find this thing where it says who the lineal champion is of each division. So this guy beat that guy. So realistically, Cerrone's the lineal champion of the 55, whatever it is. That's what fascinates me about MMA math, because you end up with like Clay Guida being the champ at 155 or something because he beat Anthony Pettis. But so I'm going to keep it here with you. So I want to talk again. Let's talk about the championship rounds. If this fight goes 5, who do you favor in that type of fight? And then go ahead and give me your pick and why.
I can't favor either one of them. I think they're both equal in that. I mean, they're both coming from great camps. Sarah Longa, I mean, he's got great coaching, and Rockhold's got AKA. So I think at the end of the day, they're both going to be very well prepared. I think if I had to pick one, it's probably going to be Chris Weidman. He's fought better opponents in 5-round fights. Rockhold really hasn't. I mean, who's the biggest 5-round fight he's faced? I think Souza. I don't think that went 5 rounds. Did he go to decision? And I'm not sure on that one. Off the top of my head, Keith Jardine, another name that comes to mind. But I think if you look at that, I think over 5 rounds, if I have to give the edge to somebody, it's going to be Weidman. I have Weidman winning this fight just from taking him down. If Rockhold doesn't catch him with a submission, I don't think he will, because Weidman's so good on the ground. ADCC, competitor. He's got that jiu-jitsu. He's very hard. He's not going to make a mistake like that. He's going to rain ground and pound, and we all know what happens when Weidman gets his hands thrown on the ground. I mean, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, and just for clarification purposes, good mind on Sal. He did go 5 rounds with Jacare, and he went 5 rounds with Tim Kennedy, but it's been a while. He's been finishing guys. Yeah. So same thing, Vince. I'll pose the question to you. 5 rounds, who do you favor, and give me your pick and why.
I'm kind of with Sal on this. I don't really heavily favor either guy in a 5-round fight. I think they both have proven they can go 5 rounds. They both got cardio. I will say Rockhold's been talking about an early finish so much that maybe he comes out and blows it a little early, but I don't see it happening. I'm picking Weidman. The wrestling's going to be the major factor, I think. Like Sal said, I don't think Rockhold's going to be able to submit him. And I think Weidman's improved enough on the feet that Rockhold's stand-up won't put him in any serious danger.
All right, so let's move on. Up next we got Jacare Souza and Yoel Romero. This fight is fascinating to me for a lot of different reasons. But mainly, Yoel Romero is just a fascinating guy to me because of his wrestling pedigree. And you know, if you watch MMA enough, you know that what you do as far as a wrestler and then wrestling in MMA, they don't always equal out. But Romero, he's one of these guys, much like Johnny Hendricks, that likes to use the wrestling to sort of keep the fight on the feet and knock guys out. I don't know if that's like a sort of a lazy mindset in the sense that it's more impressive and dynamic to knock guys out. But you know, GSP wasn't even a wrestler by nature. He grinded people out. So I'll start with Sal, and I want to talk about the wrestling. Like we said, Romero doesn't wrestle like we expect him to. Do you think that he's going to try and use the wrestling to keep it on the feet?
Oh man, I don't think you should bring the fight to the ground at all. I mean, just you know how good Souza's jiu-jitsu is, especially off this bag. I mean, this guy's got submissions for days, and so I think if Romero does use that wrestling, it's going to be tough. Wrestlers, sometimes they make mistakes when they go for a takedown. They leave themselves open a little bit. Something very, very small that, dumb minds like us, who, aren't, world champions in grappling would pick up on instantly. So I think if he does use that wrestling, he's got to be very, very careful. So I think he's got to work that striking. If he wants to use the wrestling, sure, but it can't be long because he's just going to be playing into Souza's game.
I agree, and so I'll pose the question to you, Vince. Do you think that Jacare can get this fight to the ground?
I think he can, but honestly, I don't know if he's going to have to. Like you said, Romero likes to use his striking to stay up, or his wrestling to stay on his feet, but I think if he gets Jacare in a clinch position or something like that and starts throwing him around, I wouldn't be surprised if he almost stupidly takes him to the ground, and then once he gets there, he's in for a lot of trouble if he can't get it back up. And I think his fight IQ's been a little sketchy at points, and it might end up hurting him.
That's true. And we'll take a real quick look at the tail of the tape. So it's Jacare Souza, like we said, Yoel Romero, Yoel Soldier of God Romero. So 22-3 and 0 for Jacare. Guys been fighting forever. 10-1 for Yoel Romero. Average fight time, Romero spending a little bit more time in the cage at 10:34 than Jacare Souza at 8:57. 6'1 for Jacare, 6 foot flat for Yoel Romero. Obviously both 185 pounds. Romero's got a little bit of an edge, 73-72 in the reach. Romero's a southpaw, while Jacare's an orthodox fighter. There's about 2 years of difference in age, with Romero being the older fighter. So we'll bring it back to Vince. Vince, who do you got in this one, and tell me how you think it's going to go down?
I'm taking Jacare. I think his striking actually has gotten to the point where he might be able to beat Romero on the feet if they just went straight up and brawled for a little bit. But I think he's gonna eventually find himself on the ground in this one, and he'll grab more than likely in the neck. I don't think he can actually grab a Kimura or anything on Romero with how strong he is, but he'll tap him out with some sort of choke.
Sal, swinging over to you, same thing. There isn't really a championship round aspect here, but what do you think? Who do you like in this fight, and how do you think it's going to go down?
I'm picking Jacare, just for the same reasons Vince is. I think that Romero is probably going to try and he might get clipped once. He's going to use that wrestling. He's going to try to take him down. I think Jacare is just going to end it there. I think once the fight hits the ground, he didn't get the name Jacare for nothing. He is an alligator on the ground. He will eat you alive on the ground. So if you take it there, that's what's going to happen. And I can't really see anything else happening, besides Jacare's submission. Unless Romero gets lucky and lands a lucky punch. But, that's, 10% chance maybe, I would say. I'm all in on Souza. All in.
That's probably one of the best MMA nicknames, that the guy is so associated with the nickname, you really forget it's a nickname. You just figure this guy's name's Jacare. And when you realize the nickname, you're like, Jesus, that's a hell of a nickname. So yeah. I want to go ahead and move forward to talk about the Uriah Faber Frankie Saenz fight. We'll get back to the rest. We'll wrap everything up as far as picks go in the end with the rest of the main card, because I'm actually really fascinated by the main card as well, the other two fights. But I want to get to Frankie Saenz and Uriah Faber. I want to throw this out to Sal first. Sal, is Uriah Faber here because Jose Aldo, I keep calling him Jose, but Jose Aldo, it's interchangeable, right? I'm fine. So he because he's been known to pull out of fights. And you know what? Hold on. I want to do a quick diversion here and talk about this. I'm going to ask you guys both this, and then we'll get to Uriah Faber. But both of you guys, real quick hitters. Aldo pulls out of a lot of fights. Sal first. Do you think that it's not that big of a deal because he's made a decision that, okay, I want to be ready for a fight. If I'm not ready for a fight, I'm pulling out?
You know, when you look at it and you say, you know, but Conor brags on him for pulling out of a fight, you know, when he's not 100%. I mean, does Conor really want to beat a Jose Aldo? I'm saying it too now. They're interchangeable, right?
We're good.
They're interchangeable. But, you know, does he really want to beat a 75% ready Jose Aldo? Does that really play well in his mind? Oh, I beat him. I beat him, but it was at 75%. You want to face him when he's healthy. So, you know, I have no problems with him pulling out. If he wants to fight when he's 100%, you know, fighting, it's only going to take you so far in life. You know, he might not fight. He's saying he might not even fight past, you know, this year or next year, and he's already looking at retirement. And he's not even 30. Is he 29? He's 29, 30. Yeah. So, you know, he's not even you know, past his prime yet. And he's already looking for the doorway. So, I think if you want in a fighter's mind, I have no problem with it because, you know, it keeps you ready for the rest of your life. You know, there's still 40 years you have to live, 30 years you have to live afterwards. And do you really want to do that, you know, with a low quality of living because you took one fight on short notice, you know, with a broken rib when you couldn't breathe, and, you know, he's saying all these things like you couldn't walk. So.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's a real weird game that we play with these MMA fighters where we want them to always show up for fights, and then after the fight we won't let them make excuses for being hurt. It's like, all right, if I'm hurt, you want me to pull out? Well, if I don't pull out, then I gotta fight with an injury, and then you're asking me why I fought like shit. It's because I'm hurt. It's like a catch-22. So anyway, let's get back to the Uriah Faber Frankie Saenz fight. Sal, like I said, I was going to start with you. We'll throw it to you. Okay. What do you think? Do you think Uriah is just here to collect a paycheck and be an insurance policy, or does Frankie Saenz have something for him?
I think it's that first one. I think that the UFC is trying to get that TJ Dillashaw, you know, Uriah Faber, you know, rivalry that's been brewing so long now. I think they're trying to make that happen. I think if Dillashaw gets past Dominic Cruz, I mean, even if Dominic Cruz were to get past Dillashaw, you have that, you know, finally, I think it's the third fight between the two, you know, Cruz and Faber. So you have these two rivalries coming together, and who else in that bantamweight division is really going to be a title contender right now? You know, Sun Sal's on, you know, he's injured. They have Henan Barao, who's the number 2 ranked guy. You know, he just lost to Dillashaw, and you have Cruz, who's already slated to fight Dillashaw. So who's coming in afterwards? You know, after this title fight, it's going to be Faber. I mean, Aljamain Sterling won tonight. You know, he beat Johnny Eduardo, but I think he needs one more fight at least to even take on the champion, considered a title challenger. So I think Faber's, you know, he's collecting a paycheck, but he's also collecting that title challenger. That, I mean, as much as we all probably hated to hear, you know, Uriah Faber yet again fighting for a title, for a UFC title, and everybody hates hearing it. He's beating people, and he deserves the title, because who else more in that division deserves it right now? So I think that's pretty much what it is. It's a paycheck and it's a title shot.
Yeah, and it could be a situation where, and I'll throw this to you, Vince, and give your thoughts on it, where they're just serving up signs for somebody, for Uriah Faber to look good crushing, and then it hypes up the Dillashaw fight. Am I pretty close to the center of the dartboard on that, Vince?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the situation here. Faber shouldn't really have any problems on Saturday, I don't think, and it is just to set up a TJ fight or possibly the Cruz fight. And that's honestly the way they probably should have played it. I think I remember hearing something about Faber was trying to get a fight with Brian Caraway for this card or something like that, but honestly, if you can give him somebody that he can run through, it's not a bad idea at this point with the way bantamweight's looking.
All right, both the guys are picking Uriah Faber. Obviously, I mean, you can tell by their comments that's who they want to see get the winner. Vince, we'll go back to you because it gives us a chance to go back to the main card. You got the sleeper of this fight being Damian Maia and Gunnar Nelson. Sometimes I think that the best fights are when two guys think that they can knock a guy out and the other guy can't knock them out. Much like Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor, both thinks that, you know, they have a chin that's better than the other and they got hands that are better than the other. So my question is, do you think that's what Damian Maia and Gunnar Nelson think? That each is better than the other on the ground, and let's figure it out?
I hope so, because if not, I think my sleeper fight pick might end up literally being the sleeper fight, and everybody's going to take a nap. If these guys go to the ground, I'm really excited to see how it goes. Maya's obviously world class, but Gunner's proven that. I think he has close to 75% of his wins by submission or something crazy like that. So, I mean, both of these guys can go, and if they go and actually grapple the way that we kind of see, I almost want to see a grappling tournament match. I know it's probable with the punches and whatnot, but if we can see a straight jiu-jitsu match on Saturday, I'm going to be ecstatic, and I think people are actually really going to enjoy it.
Again, he's a pro. He segues me right to where I need to go. Sal, my question for you is, are we looking at a Metamoris fight here, or are we looking at some guys that, sometimes when the similar skills are awash, two guys are like, I respect you as a jiu-jitsu player, you respect me, let's stand up and bang it out. Are we looking at that, or are we looking at, these guys really hitting the ground?
I think Nelson's going to be a little bit too, I don't want to say proud, but, he comes from that McGregor camp, and he's friends with McGregor and everything like that, so I think he's going to have that little brashness to him. He's going to try and beat Maia at his own game. I think he has the better striking, just in my mind. I think Gunnar Nelson's a better striker than Damian Maia, so I think at some point it's going to be a wash. I don't think either guy's going to take it to the ground. I think they're both going to stand in the trade, so I think that favors Gunnar. I know Vince picked Maia. I'm being different. I think I'm going to be right yet again over Vince. I don't know what the year our yearly record is yet, but I'm pretty sure he's only being by a few at this point. I have to go back to the Excel spreadsheet that we have going on. But I think Gunnar Nelson's going to take it. I'm putting my money on him. You better not let me down. There's a lot at stake here. I have to be better than Vince, so I'm going to go Gunnar Nelson.
All right, sounds good. And like Sal alluded to, the boys are split on that one. It's Nelson for Sal and Damian Maia for Vince. All right, let's move on to Sal, your sleeper pick. You have Tisha Torres and Jocelyn Leibarger. So what about this appeals to? I mean, this is a loaded card, and you picked a real sleeper. So what did you see in this?
Well, one, it's a women's fight. So when we do these cards, not many people pick the women's fight, to be honest with you. So I like to spread the love a little bit. Folks to the women's side, especially this fight. You have Tisha Torres, who's one of the better strawweights in the world. She's facing, a debuting fighter, and it could be a title shot eliminator for her. She could be putting herself in a position with a big enough win. I think there's, a couple people ahead of her, but if she comes in there, we're talking 8-second knockout. She just wrecks her in the first go around. I think she can get that title shot. So I think when you look at the implications of this fight, they really set up this division. I don't like to pick main card fights because what's the fun in picking a main card fight? No offense to Vince here. No offense. It's easy to pick the main card. It's easy to pick the main card fights. Everybody wants to see the pay-per-view fights. But it's those undercard fights, and this one, I think, has the most implications outside of Uriah Faber, which, again, I don't think that's a sleeper fight either. So I think when you have such a division-changing fight like this, and, Joanna Champion, I'm not even trying to pronounce her name on anything right now. I can't, J-Check, I'm sorry. If I butcher it, I butcher it. I'll try, but I think she's going to need title challenges very, very soon. So I think Tisha Torres is kind of setting herself up for this division. Not this next upcoming fight, but the fight after for a title shot.
Actually, I think you did pretty good on the pronunciation. I think most people just concede that it's such a hard name to say that I actually like Joanna Champion. It's funny. There used to be this thing in the old days where the Muay Thai fighters would take, your name would be like John Carlos Fairtex if you fought for Fairtex. So that's kind of what I think we just need to give her whoever her best sponsor is, we'll just call her like Joanna Reebok or something. So Vince, what are your thoughts on this fight? I mean, you have the same winner as Sal does. Are you expecting a good fight, or do you think Sal's way off?
I don't know if I'm expecting a bad fight. I expect Torres to win pretty handily, but I think Sal almost does too. It's more of a showcase fight for Torres, and that's probably a good thing with the way that I'm going to do it too. You get J-Check's kind of contenders are playing out here. There's Gedhela, and then there's the winner of tonight's main event, and then there's not much else outside of Torres. So This should give her a nice little boost and put her maybe in a position to be in a number one contenders fight.
All right, sounds good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and run down the entire picks for the boys, and we'll touch on real quick just the ones that they disagreed on, and then we'll go from there. So again, top of the list, both picking Aldo, both picking Weidman, pretty much linked up throughout the entire main card. Both picking Jacare, both they're split on Nelson and Maia, with Sal picking Nelson, Vince picking Damian Maia, both picking Max Holloway. As far as prelims go, they both have Faber, they both have Tisha Torres, both have Colby Covington, both have Kevin Lee. Prelim fight cards, they're split. Sal has Joe Proctor and Vince has Magomed Mustafa. Split again on John McDessie and Yancy Medeiros, which is surprising to me to be a Fight Pass fight, but that's neither here nor there. So Sal has McDessie and Vince has Medeiros. And then again, they both pick Court McGee. So Vince, I'll throw this to you. Of those fights, we haven't got a chance to talk about Max Holloway fight. We haven't got a chance to talk about some other ones. What's the fight that you sort of have a little bit kind of got your eye on, other than the ones we've talked about so far?
I really like the Colby Covington-Warley Alves fight. Alves has looked pretty good since that whole, I think it was the Ultimate Fighter Brazil 2. He has a nice little win over Alan Joban, and I think he's got a lot of potential, but Covington he's obviously got the John Jones roommate stigma with him, which has kind of helped him get a little bit of a star, but he's been really good in his couple of wins, and I think he might end up being a future, maybe not a contender, but a top 10 type guy if he can step things up and look good this weekend especially.
All right, Sal, so I'll throw this to you, and this is a podcasting/radio trick, just so you know. I'll ask you specifically about Max Holloway and Jeremy Stephens, since we didn't get to talk about it. So what do you think about that fight? You guys, again, are both seeing it for Max Holloway. This kid is quietly becoming, he dropped one to Conor McGregor, but he's young. He's quietly becoming, a kid maybe 5 years from now that is like a top 5, top 2 guy in this division. What do you see in that fight? They're going to bang it out, right?
I completely agree. I don't think 5 years for Max Holloway. I think a couple years. I mean, you're talking about a kid. I'm pretty sure his debut fight was a short notice fight against Dustin Poirier, if I'm not mistaken. So, this guy, his losses come against some of the better fighters in the division, and he's quietly put together a win streak. And when you look at it, I mean, his skill set, he's got good grappling, he's got good striking. So, I mean, he's just got everything, and he's only going to get better. I know he's in his early 20s. I think he might be younger than I am, but, I just think that he has so much potential, and I think that if this fight hits the ground, he's got an advantage because he can, he can out-grapple Stephens. If it stands on the ground, on the feet, I think he can outstrike Stephens. I think Stephens, is going to rely on that knockout power, rely on that chin if it stays on the feet. So I think, you have a really good fight here. I think Stephens could win it. But I just think that, Holloway, he's got so much potential. And just watching his previous fights, I think he's just getting better and better and better. And he's improving leaps and bounds between fights. That I think that you're saying 5 years, I could see him easily, next year, 2 years from now, being top 3, possibly contending for a title.
Yeah, and the funny thing about a guy like Holloway that nobody really talks about is this kid's been through wars. I mean, they put him in with everybody that you would want him to fight. I mean, just looking down the list. He's fought, before he got in the UFC, it was Eddie Rincon. He's a veteran. He fought Dustin Poirier, fought Leonard Garcia, fought Dennis Bermudez, fought Conor McGregor, fought Andre Feely, Cub Swanson, Charles Oliveira, now Jeremy Stephens. It's not that he's fought guys with names, because he has. Those guys obviously have names. The point is, every single one of those guys goes to the cage looking to give somebody a war. So it's like, you're a young kid. It's looking like Holloway is going to be 24 years old when he hits the cage. So 24 years old, you fought every, 145-pound banger they could find to throw at you. Yeah. So, I mean, that's an old 24 as far as experience, as far as what you can take. So, all right, up next, we're going to do a segment that I'm going to resurrect from my old podcasting days, which is Finish Strong. I'm going to give each of the boys a chance to just sort of rant, in particular on UFC 194, their thoughts, their feelings, just to let it all out. And by luck of the draw, Vince goes first.
Sweet. All right. I am 100% on board with this whole Conor McGregor, I'm going to be a maniac thing, and I'm going to say it out loud right now. I don't think he's going to win. I want him to win. And I don't usually pick sides. I don't have favorite fighters, anything like that. I think it's good for the UFC. It's good for the sport. Conor McGregor can somehow find a way to end this Aldo streak this year or this weekend. And really, if he does, I think we're looking at a really fun next 6 to 12 months in MMA period.
I agree. I mean, there's something about when there's a cocky guy who's not losing. Conor McGregor may be our Floyd Mayweather. Sal, you're up. Finish strong.
So I can any rant. I can choose anything to rant about.
Yeah, I'll give you carte blanche. UFC
on 194.
Yeah,
194,
give it to
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. We talk about I want him to win too. I am an unabashed supporter of him. I like both fighters. I really, really do. I'd like to see a brash champion. A guy that's going to talk. I'd like it to continue, not to have that mystique fade. But why on earth is Dana White billing Jose Aldo as the pound-for-pound best if he doesn't feel that way? That's my thing. We all know he wants McGregor to win. We all know it. It's better for the UFC. It's better for the money. He doesn't get somebody that's, complaining about fighter pay as their champion. But why? He does this with every fight. I might think Jose Aldo is the best pound-for-pound fighter, but he certainly doesn't. And I just think that when you build this fight, why do that? We know what you want to win, who you want to win. So when McGregor loses, I do not want to see that funeral stare that you said before when Rousey lost. I don't want to see that funeral stare. So I don't want to feel like I have a death in the family. You build Jose Aldo as this guy. He's your guy. Do not let him go to Bellator. As much as I love Bellator, I cover it for the site as much as possible. I do all the predictions. I would love to see him in Bellator, but I like to see him fighting the best even more. So just share the love, Dana. Just share the love. Just embrace it. Just embrace it, please. We all just because Jose can't speak English, doesn't speak English, and that's like a big thing for him, he's not marketable because he can't, I think that's one of the reasons because, he doesn't speak English, so people don't really connect with him that well, but, he's not, he might be your most marketable, but he's definitely your most dominant champion on your roster right now, outside of John Jones, but he's not champion. Don't tell Cormier. So, yeah, just embrace it, Dana. Just embrace him, please. Embrace Jose like he's your son. After you fight, hug him. Come in there and hug him. Put the belt on him. Hug him. Say, good job, champ. Good job. Pat him on the back. Give him an extra paycheck behind the door.
I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. We can't have these situations where it's clear who you're rooting for because, it does affect the way the fans perceive. I mean, a lot of fans, they look at the UFC through the filter of Dana White. And if you're sort of playing this card where, you're favoring Conor. I get it, Dana. If Conor loses, you lose money. Ronda lost, you lost money. I get it, but it's not. It has to be something bigger than that. And I understand. It's like the old days where you're struggling to make ends meet. You're building you're building a friggin' new campus that looks like ESPN's campus. The ends are meeting. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, so I'll finish strong. My rant is just a simple plea to all MMA fans. Enjoy this. Enjoy these kind of fights. Enjoy this weekend. Enjoy the hype. Enjoy all of it. If you can get there. One of the things I'm most mad about is I'm 4 hours from Vegas. I didn't get tickets. I didn't have media credential. I should have just went. You got to just be – the first fight I ever went to was when Anderson Silva beat Rich Franklin for the belt. And it was amazing. I mean, it wasn't as many fans then. It was kind of cool, but you got to enjoy these big cards because with the way that the UFC is saturated now, and I respect why they're doing it, they're trying to expand globally, but – you have got to enjoy these stacked cards. We're going to get this year. UFC 200 is going to be I don't even know what they're going to do for UFC 200. They're probably going to have Ronda fighting on the prelims. They're going to try and stack that card so much. So you have to embrace this. It's worth it. It's important. We are in the first generation of the UFC. This is the first ever generation of it. So enjoy it. I mean, it's fun. Someday, 100 years from now, people are going to look back at this time and they're going to watch podcasts like this on YouTube, and we're going to be the indicators of what went down back then. It's going to be a whole different world. We're not going to have to read dusty books to know what happened. It's going to be, this stuff's going to exist someday.
Don't look at me.
we're gonna be part of the history of MMA, and we should enjoy it. All fans should enjoy these fights. Don't complain about stuff. Just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I would like to thank Sal DeRose, Vince Carey, the two most fit guys, again, to give you the skinny on UFC 194. Read all their stuff. It's all great. You want to know about Bellator? Sal's your guy. You want to know about some interesting other stuff in MMA? Vince is your guy. These guys are writing great stuff. Read it. All right, Vince is gone, it seems. Sal, I appreciate your time, and we will have to do this again.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good day. All right, fans. Again, UFC 194 is this weekend, as Chael Sonnen would say. 7 in the East, 10 in the West, and only on pay-per-view. That's where you can find the fight, where you can find everything you want to know about MMA, combatpress.com. See ya.